And as I say, the biggest part of what we need to be able to do, right now we should be shamans to connect us back from the brink of this left brain logic and way of operating the world back to a more balanced left-right brain way of being and becoming.
Hi everyone, welcome to Now Boarding, a new travel podcast by me, Payal Nair. This show aims at creating awareness about ecotourism, sustainable tourism, responsible travel, and a lot more. We will cover stories and journeys of people who are ecotourism specialists and those who are leaders in their field. We will also be talking to people who have had unique travel experiences, remarkable conceptual places to stay, unexplored cultures, and ancient histories of various towns and cities around the world. Join me in this journey of knowing more about travel. Get inspired to see the world and discover your inner self. Hi everyone. Today I am in conversation with the very smiling Simon Sharky. Simon is director and CEO of the Necessary Space in Scotland. He also serves on the board of Arts and Business Scotland, and he was one of the first recipients of a Nesta International Cultural Leadership Fellowship. Simon also wears multiple hats, and I did not know how to include all of that in my introduction, so I'm going to leave it to you. Thank you so much for joining me today, Simon.
So to explain who I am and what I do, I'm the director CEO of the Necessary Space, which is actually borrowed from a Singapore company called the Necessary Stage, which Alvin Tan runs, because I worked in Singapore with Alvin a long time ago. And when I left the National Theatre of Scotland, I always had the intention of creating a company that would do the things that we did together all that time ago. So the Necessary Space is it's a company and a collective of artists who go into communities and situations and contexts to make change, to make positive change. And that's what I do across Scotland, across the UK, and across the world. I no longer serve on the board of Arts and Business. I once did. I've served on several boards. Right now, I'm on the leadership committee of the International Teaching Artists Collective, which is a fantastic organisation.
Sorry, Simon. Sorry, I just wanted to ask, when you mention artists, is it just theatre practitioners, or it's artists across the board?
It's artists across the board.
Oh, okay.
So although usually what we do and what it culminates in is in some way performative, but I work, when I'm referring to artists, I'm talking about writers, choreographers, designers, teachers as artists or teaching artists, musicians, any art form or any form of artistry is what I'm talking about. It's putting the right people into the right situations. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little more about the Necessary Space. I mean, you have mentioned that it's a collective of artists, and you go into, different kinds of communities. So if you could just elaborate a little more on that. That's one. And two, so I'm just going to break this question up into two parts. And the second one is, I also want to understand from you your perspective on how significant is the role of artists in today's world and environment, because whether it's political or otherwise. So again, I leave you.
That's a biggie, that one, Payal. I'll just keep going with that one question. I'll try and be brief with the Necessary Space, because I like to get into the meaty stuff. I was one of the founding directors of the National Theatre of Scotland, and we set that company up with no theatre, very deliberately. We called it a theatre without walls, because we could make theatre anywhere that audiences and performers could gather. I've carried that ethos into the necessary space, which I call a theatre of opportunity, which is the antithesis of a theatre of the oppressed. The Auguste Boal thing, although I'm a huge fan of Auguste Boal. We're in a new paradigm, and the work that Necessary Space does, as I said, is putting artists into spaces and places with people to make change. And I've spoken a bit about what I mean by artists. And the question about what's the role of the artist in making change in today's new paradigm. I have for a long time been looking at the horizon that we're on, this event horizon now. And I've been looking at that coming our way, and being embedded into communities that are not just in Scotland, but around the world. I have noticed and heard the warning signs of where we're at now, which is ecological disaster.
Yeah.
The polarization of points of view with large groups and of people getting behind movements like Me Too and Black Lives Matter, the annihilation of Indigenous peoples, the colonization of countries and worlds and brains and minds, the dominance of science over other forms of knowing and communication, the government's not working, religion's not working, science is being questioned. We've got fake news. We've got this polarization going on. We're in several different types of crises, is what I think. And I've seen for a long time the role of the artist in making sure that we hold on to some sense of reality and some sense of connection and community and belief and hope that is going to shape how society and people and individuals and a new consciousness, that's pretty grand claim, but a new consciousness in a new paradigm. The iPhone's only 12 years old, I think, now. Now that's no time in a lifetime, but it's a huge time if you're 12 years old or even 15 years old. And ways of communicating and your perspective on the world and how you learn and how you are in the world have completely changed. Yeah. And it's no surprise that we're in other types of crisis, mental health and well-being. The suicide rates in Northern European countries, at least, are rocketing. But the biggest concern for me is our planet, because without a sustainable planet, none of this matters. And the urgency from about that, I think people know, but there's no action whatsoever. So the artist's role, I think, is to be, I mean, it's chaos, and this is the way I describe the artist's role. There's lots of chaos around. There's always been chaos. Artists are pilots through chaos. We know the pathways. We know the stop-offs. We know how to refuel. We know how to get the energy into people's minds and bodies. We know how to gather communities and coalesce them around great ideas that are going to make things not just sustainable, but joyful.
It was some projects that that you've been involved, the Necessary Space, so you personally have been involved in to as enablers to bring about change.
Okay, let me tell you about two that I love and they're still ongoing. They grow, and they're designed deliberately to grow. And if anybody wants to get involved, then they can get in touch. The first one is a piece called Conference of the Birds, which is based on an old Sufi poem where at a time of existential crisis, the birds of the world gather and they listen to the hoopoe, who's the wisest of the birds, who tells them they have to travel through 7 valleys in order to gain enlightenment and avoid this existential crisis. You can see the metaphor, right? But this is an ancient poem. And of course, the birds gather and they have no leader. And the hoopoe says, we'll travel through these 7 valleys and we'll find the Simorgh. The Simorgh is this mythical phoenix-like bird who will enlighten the birds, and they will save themselves from catastrophe. And the birds all make excuses, saying, "Oh no, I'm the eagle. I'm too high and mighty for this kind of thing." The sparrow says, "I've got a tiny little heart. I can't make this journey." And the peacock's too proud, and they all have their excuses. But the hoopoe urges them on. And they travel through these valleys, the valley of the quest, of knowledge, of love, of detachment and independence, of unity. Let's see if I can remember all 7. Unity, wonderment, and enlightenment.
Have you seen anything tangible in terms of, in their little community, has there been any change?
Loads, which is what I love about it as well, because it's not just about these geopolitical big things around climate change. It was about personal existential angst as well.
Yeah.
So the whole gamut. So I'll tell you 1 or 2 stories, because I could go on for hours. the change that was made, but the one that I love telling about is it's very small rural communities who make batik art, which is that beautiful Indian art that it's almost like comic. And they would draw a story on a scroll that would be a big long scroll, and it's beautiful bright colours with gold leaf painted into it. You would know it as soon as you see it. And they take these scrolls and they take them into market squares around villages, and they sing the story. And it's families that do it. You know, it's mum, dad, it's passed down through generations. It's an ancient art form. They sing the story and people give them money. You know, it's like a traveling storytelling group. And COVID came around, of course, and so they couldn't travel. They couldn't, and so they, like many artists across the world, they couldn't make a living, because this is how they made a living, and it's how they connected to communities. And our artists, from the Yuva Ekta Foundation, this was one of the projects that they did, and I think this was the Valley of Unity, maybe, that they went and they worked with these artists who make these scrolls. And they made a scroll, and they painted a scroll about COVID, and you know, with little characters with masks, and how they were hemmed in and they couldn't. So it was the story of how their art form stopped. And they gave them mobile phones and connected them through Instagram and WhatsApp to audiences across India, and then across the world, and of course with our network as well.
Yeah.
And instead of people throwing money into a hat, people started paying with PayPal. So they got money. They started making a living, and they found a completely new audience as well, and a kind of worldwide audience. And they were then able to invest that money into their communities as well. And there are dozens of stories like that in each of the countries that we visited that are very local and personal, but under this umbrella of this is how we, if we use our imaginations and creativity, we can change the way that we They do things,
That's incredible.
But I love telling that story. It's a really nice one. But let me tell you about the School of the Impossible. I love this one. The School of the Impossible. I'm working with a Brazilian company who responded to a call out from International Teaching Artists Collaborative, who were offering very small amounts to commission works that would be dealing with climate change, climate emergency. And Plato Cultural from Florianópolis in Brazil came up with this idea called School of the Impossible. And what happens, the best way to describe it is what happens. What happens is in a classroom of 9, 10-year-olds, a round bookcase appears mysteriously, and the teacher doesn't know what it is. So she sends one of the kids to the head teacher and says, and they come back with a letter. And say, oh, the head teacher said, yes, it arrived this morning. It is for us. And it came with this letter. And they read the letter, and it's from a mysterious person called Masami, who lives in 2072, who lives in the future, and says, if you have this bookcase, it means that you're the people that have been selected to become to become agents of SOS. Do you accept this invitation? And of course the children say yeah, because it's got all these mysterious books in it with strange names on them. And when the teaching artist who comes in is teaching, the bookcase starts to pulsate, and they pull out books, and inside the books there's instructions of how to connect with these people in the future and how to save the planet. So they have to learn through a series of adventures about what's happening in their local environment, what's happening worldwide with the oceans, with Earth, with the pollution in air. And so they go on these adventures prompted by these books until they find a portal to the future. And they leave school and they go to this portal. And when they get to the portal, they find out that the people that they've been communicating with in the future are actually themselves. And that they have to, and they urge themselves to start writing and teaching the people about what needs to happen now in order to get to that point in the future.
Wow.
So, and it's God, and they totally buy it. They become agents of SOS. They learn whale language in order to be able to communicate with the whales. And a really weird thing happened in Brazil. They went out to the beach and they were all singing to the sea. And they had these tubes that you wave around and it makes a kind of whale sound. So they're all standing on the beach singing to the sea, and a school of dolphins rose. And of course, the kids all thought, oh, right, good, they're here. But the adults were all like, well, this is a bit freaky. Life imitating that. And a similar thing happened when they went to visit the portal. A massive thunderstorm happened when they broke through the time zone, and this massive thunderstorm. So it's brilliant. And I'm installing that in schools in Scotland now, with an intention that it connects with curriculum and becomes a teaching tool for teachers in schools and educational authorities. And the beauty of it is that these children in Brazil will be communicating with children in Scotland by September. And we're talking to Switzerland and New Zealand and several other countries about opening portals around the world so that the children of the world, or these agents of the School of the Impossible, can genuinely change the way we think and deal with climate emergency. And each time a portal is opened, there's a new it adds to the narrative. Because we find out more about it. You know, we don't start again. We go, there's a portal opened in New Zealand. Everybody tune in. Yeah. And then it's a big network that will grow, and it'll take for however long it lasts and however long it takes. That's the intention. We've got to think long term.
Yeah. Wow. It's been absolutely fascinating listening to you. Like I said, I'm going to hand over the stage to you and the microphone to you. And I'm not disappointed. I'm so intrigued, and I'm so, it's just been fascinating listening to how you are, bringing in all the effort that's being made through these different verticals to bring about change.
Thank you, Payal.
Hope to see you in Singapore soon. It takes a lot of hard work and commitment by me and my team to bring these meaningful conversations to you week after week. If you're enjoying our podcasts, do write in reviews, follow and subscribe. It encourages us to continue with our mission of creating a community. I also have a very small request. There is another way of supporting. A one-time donation from you will greatly help. You can reach out on our Instagram pages, Podcast Melting Pot and nowboarding.podcast. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Now Boarding, a travel podcast. Check out other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. And of course, don't forget to share your thoughts with us. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes only on Now Boarding, a travel podcast.